Welcome to Take a Seat, the Ashfords trainee podcast. I'm your host, Bella. Join me as I speak to members from each department at Ashfords, exploring trainee life within various seats. Okay, good morning. Welcome to episode 2 of our Ashfords trainee podcast. Really excited for this episode. I'm joined with 2 of our partners from our real estate team. If you'd like to go ahead and give sort of a brief introduction, please.
I'm Simon. I'm a partner in the commercial real estate team at Ashfords. I was made up as partner in 2021, so it's been a few years now. But I trained at quite a big city firm in London. And the work I primarily do is investment, buying and selling commercial property, acting for buyers and sellers of commercial property, acting for local authorities. We act for a lot of national retailers, so we do a lot of landlord and tenant work, and taking a wide range of premises all over the country. But I also do property finance. I do renewables, so I act for renewables developers, landowners, and strangely, for some particular reason, a lot of ports. So I do a lot of work for a government-owned client, foreign government-owned client who have a lot of port infrastructure. So I think somewhat by accident rather than design, I end up doing a lot of port work, and I work with a lot with our team who have marine specialisms. So it works quite well from that perspective.
Cheers. I think it's probably the motto, isn't it? Accident more than design is most of our careers. My name is Robin. I'm currently the head of real estate at Ashfords. But when I'm not managing the department, my background is predominantly public sector. So I act for a lot of local government clients, dealing with a wide range of property issues, primarily kind of regeneration and big projects, but it can be anything and everything that the private sector do. I also deal with a lot of strategic land companies looking at promotion agreements and options and long-term development projects. And I also act for the Royal Parks in London, who manage Hyde Park, St James's Park, and those other 7 parks in the centre of London. So very varied and mixed bag really. But much like Simon, lots of it accident more than design really.
Brilliant. So if you could sort of break it down into layman's terms for somebody who may not have kind of any idea about the real estate team, the kind of work that you do, if you could summarize the team as a whole, sort of in a couple sentences, what would you say?
I mean, it's a massive team, real estate. We've got a lot of lawyers, a lot of fee earners, and it's probably, if you can do something with a bit of land, we can help you. Probably.
Yeah. Great way of putting it.
There's very, very little we can't do on the real estate side yet.
Yeah. So I mean, buying, selling, renting, developing, rebuilding, knocking down anything you can think of, pretty much. Probably other than individual houses being bought and sold by individuals, because that would sit with our residential team. But other than that, we'll have a go.
Yeah.
And you currently have a near record-breaking number of trainees at the minute, don't you? Or was that last seat?
We do. Yeah.
You've had
the record.
8. Yeah. Is it currently 8? I think across we've got trainees in all of our offices. So London, Plymouth, Exeter, Bristol. I think we're and I suppose it befits one of the biggest department by headcount. You have the biggest number of trainees, but it does mean a lot of trainees, but equally there's really good experience for them.
Yeah, and I feel like work within real estate is something that Ashfords tends to be quite well known for. So this is an episode I'm really excited about, looking into the department from that kind of trainee perspective as well. So walk us through kind of a typical day in the life for a trainee. What are some of the tasks that you end up sort of delegating them? What can somebody expect to be involved with when they come and join you? And I know that may vary kind of sub-team wise and where you specialize, but
I mean the trainees are sat with different kind of subsets in the team, but we try not to be siloed because everyone in the extra office, I'm using the example as the extra office, but I think the same is in all of our offices. We try not to be too kind of siloed, and the trainees will help each other out. So, for example, our renewables team, the trainees will help out with the renewables team, then the development side of the team will have their own trainee. We've got a trainee, but they all kind of muck in when holidays, and we try and make sure everyone gets a bit of a flavour of kind of tasks on each type of work. And to help that, we've got a trainee guide, which is like a real estate specific trainee guide, which we put together. And that includes a task list, which is not if you do not do all of these tasks, you fail. It is I think it's a really good guide as to stuff you can do, and you can tick it off as you go. And you look down the list, you think, well, I haven't done this, I have done this. And you can start going around and asking if you're a trainee and say, I haven't done an option agreement. I've done loads of leases, I've done contracts, I've done licenses, but what about an option agreement? What about doing some title reviewing for a renewables project or something like that, or preparing some CPSEs? So we try and make it as varied as possible. And I think most of the feedback we get from our trainees over the last few years, because we do a feedback session and a wash-up session at the end of every seat they do, is they have said it's really good for the varied level of work, the responsibility they get, which could be quite daunting, but I think it's good. You've got to learn at some point, so why not get thrown in the deep end? I think real estate, it was the same when I did my seat in real estate, which made it stick out from the others, is you do get thrown in the deep end a bit. You do run your own files. So if you're in a corporate team or a banking team or something like that, you're normally a small cog in a bigger wheel. But in real estate, and other teams as well, but I think definitely real estate, there is the ability to give a trainee a file. Here is a file, please run this file, like a small lease or a small land purchase. And they can pick it up from the beginning, run it the whole way through, bill it, finish it, which I think is really good. As I say, you've got to learn at some point. So, and you know, trainee at the moment in our team, when she said, who's the fee earner on this? I was like, you. And she kind of thought, really? I was like, yeah, you're a fee earner, you're a crack on.
Yeah.
But obviously she's being closely supervised, whether it's by me or one of the guys in our team. So she's not on her own. She's very well supported. But I think it's good to learn that ownership and being, this is your job. This is what you want to do. You want to be a lawyer. You've got to take ownership of stuff. So
yeah.
We try and get that instilled from as early as possible.
Yeah, I think it's one of the departments where you actually, as a trainee, will get client contact, which it's not always easy, and it's not you wouldn't be doing it on your own probably, but some departments it naturally lend themselves to it more than others. But I think real estate is one where you will get exposure to clients and all the joys that brings. But yeah, I'd say other than the sort of daily whippings, that's pretty much it, isn't it, for trainees? So. But no, I think, as Simon says, we want to give the trainees the best representation of what it's actually going to be, because, my view is always that as much as we're assessing trainees for their suitability for the firm long term, they should be using this as an opportunity to assess what they want to do long term. Yeah. And I think if you don't give a representation of that, then you're storing up trouble for yourself and not giving the trainees the best opportunities to make those kind of judgment calls, really. Yeah,
absolutely. You obviously mentioned the task list. What are some examples of the things that are on that list?
We've got a first seat trainee at the moment, which is, extra daunting for the trainee. So we've made sure she's extra supported, and we haven't, we slowly ramped her up with a workload. So we didn't kind of dump everything on her on the first day. So, but she's doing really, really well. And the first kind of task were more, can you help prepare some CPSEs, for example? Can you do a first draft of quite a straightforward document like a license for alterations? Can you help me prepare engrossments? Engrossments being final version of documents before they go out for signing, preparing the plans, putting the documents together, preparing DocuSign envelopes and things like that. So we kind of give them more straightforward tasks, but we've made sure that she's been involved and been present on as many calls and meetings as possible. Which is really useful for us, because she takes a really good, accurate note of the call, and we can then send that to the client as a record of what's happened on the call. So I think it's really important that trainees are on negotiation calls, and the learning often comes through just taking stuff in. You don't even realise you're learning. It's kind of a process of osmosis, and that was something that really, I suppose, struck me when I thought about my training. Is we weren't in an open plan environment. We shared an office with a senior fee earner or a partner, and probably 60 to 70% of the learning you didn't even know you were doing, because you were just listening to them on the phone, and they'd say, pull up a chair, be on this call, or you'd just be listening to them on the phone, and you'd be listening to them how they talk to their senior fee earners, and it's all kind of just going in. And I think that's and then we'll get on to the working from home thing, I'm sure, but I think that's that's the thing you can't replace with working from home is just learning by osmosis. But yeah, so that's generally the task list. It varies from preparing documents, straightforward tasks, to being involved in calls, and then it ramps up. So we're now ramping up. So now she is running her own files. So this morning she's just got to completion of a quite a small, straightforward lease. But she's opened it. She's the fee earner. She's prepared the documents. She's taken the instructions. She's talked to the client. She's sent the documents out. Thankfully, the negotiation was pretty limited, but that's her file. She's done it. So. And she'll now be full of confidence for the next one, and we can ramp it up a little bit more. So, that's the aim anyway. Obviously, it doesn't always go to plan because we're dictated to by what clients want, but that's the aim, is just slowly ramping it up over time. Yeah.
I think because again, it's kind of incumbent on a department that's got so many trainees, but we're mindful of the fact that we could have a trainee that's about to qualify versus first seat. So again, we try and apply that kind of logic to making sure they're given tasks that are kind of commensurate with where they're at in that trainee experience. Journey. Yeah. So the way you might ask a final seat trainee to look at something, you probably wouldn't get a first seat trainee to do it in the same way, or without the supervision, or without as much supervision. So we do try and moderate that. And I think the other thing, as Simon says, there is an element of responsibility on the trainees to kind of take charge. So they're looking at that task list, and as Simon says, if they're coming towards the end of their seat and they're like, actually, I haven't done too many client meetings, for example, or something like that, where they can look at it and go, actually, there's a gap there in my experience in real estate, then I think there is an element of trainees having to come, because I had a conversation with a trainee the other day where they said, I'd like a bit more client contact. I wasn't aware, big department, you lose track. So there's a responsibility, I think, on trainees to kind of speak up, because if they do, the size of the department means you'll find an opportunity for them to fill those gaps.
Yeah,
and nobody's going to criticise you for that. In fact, it's a positive. I think that's something that trainees often don't do. They kind of, there is a tendency just to sit there and wait to be asked to do something. We want you to be proactive. We want you to be, if we're having a conversation, come and pull up a chair. Can I join this conversation and listen in? Of course you can. Or like Robin says, I haven't done this. Can I get involved in this? Can I do a bit of something else? That's good. That shows you're taking responsibility for your own development rather than just expecting to be spoon fed, which is not the. We have an obligation, obviously, to get as much out of the trainees and get as much out of their experience as we can, but ultimately we're servicing clients. It is a responsibility of the trainee to grab hold of it and get as much out of the opportunity as they can.
I think that says a lot about the kind of culture that we have at Ashfords as well. I mean, I know you touched on the kind of open plan office that we have, which I think is something that I hear a lot from speaking to trainees. Something that they really appreciate is the ability to kind of approach partners and ask those questions and have those conversations and be made to feel like no question is a silly question, which I think is probably quite rare at a lot of law firms, to be able to, say to a trainee, if there's something else that you want to get involved with, just ask, and them feeling like they can have those open conversations. So
and I think the open plan office really helps that. Partners aren't locked away. There is, you walk into the part, you don't know who the senior associate is, you don't know who the trainee is, sometimes you don't know who the partner is. So that's good. There's no clear hierarchy of people in, palaces in the sky.
No.
Well, it's different from when I was a trainee. Partners had the corner offices, and you sort of get summoned usually when you did something wrong. So, but no, I think and I joined Ashfords getting on 5 years ago now, and as in my experience as a firm, the partners are the most approachable I've ever worked with. There really isn't a sense of trainees being intimidated or shouldn't be intimidated, and we are very, very open, and the partners that are around and available.
I mean, Partner Approachability Award winners for 2025. So, just to plug that.
It's borne out.
It has. We had to include it. I'm very proud. No, brilliant. That's great. And then in terms of what trainees can sort of expect to gain once they've finished those sort of 6 months, maybe sort of specific skills coming from the real estate team, how do you kind of see that transition from maybe a first seat trainee coming in, joining you, not really sort of knowing very much? How can you expect that progression?
I mean, you would expect all of the trainees during the course of those 2 years to start building on the kind of core skills: client management, file management, confidence, talking to clients, confidence, talking to colleagues. drafting, research, all that kind of core stuff you would expect any department to deliver that kind of progress. And real estate's obviously no exception. But I think probably, they'll layer in some knowledge about real estate and property law, which may or may not be an attraction, I guess. But I think probably it's the self-sufficiency, the fact that you probably are running matters. And I think, as Simon alluded to previously, that's probably the distinction, is that I think among a couple of other departments, real estate lends itself to you actually seeing a transaction from start to finish. And that, I think, is probably the one in terms of layering in confidence going forward. Probably, I'd say. Yeah,
no, definitely. It is. Yeah, it is a progression, as you say. And come the end of your training contract, you should be far more confident in what you're doing. I know it is kind of reset every 6 months, isn't it, or every 4 months, depending on how long it is. It is a bit disconcerting, isn't it? You kind of come to the end of your 6 months, you feel like you've just got your feet under the table, and here you go. We're starting essentially from scratch, but you're not. You've got those skills. You should be more confident going into your next seat. The base skills you have of organisation, making sure your emails are organised, making sure your file management's organised, confidence talking to clients. You're building on that. Again, you might not necessarily know you're building on it, but you are. And you should be going into each seat just that little bit more confident, and picking things up a little bit quicker.
So in terms of the real estate team at Ashfords, how does a team work? How would you describe the team environment?
Amazing, obviously. Obviously.
The best.
We've got a great team. It's a really, really good team. Very proud to be involved in it and everything that goes with that. Because, as I mentioned right at the outset, we do everything real estate. We have structured it into kind of groups, subgroups. I mean, it's not a formal, black line, rigid demarcation, but broadly we've grouped ourselves under the kind of investment arm that Simon deals with, which is a lot of landlord and tenant, purchasing properties for investment, for a rent return and what have you. We've grouped it into a development sector, which is more where I sit, which has we act for residential developers, so your Persimmon Homes who are buying sites and building houses. And other sort of development regeneration projects, big kind of infrastructure. We have an energy team who deal with a lot of renewable projects, so solar farms, wind farms, battery storage facilities. So they're with a kind of green energy tilt to it. And we have a kind of team in Bristol that does a lot of franchise food retail. So they act for people like Subway opening up their stores. So we group people according to the kind of most common work they're doing. But as I say, that's not to say that someone who's in that team won't deal with, so I refer work to people in Simon's team and vice versa. So it's not too rigid, but it's starting to group people into kind of specialisms and the work they do most commonly. I think from a trainee perspective and a newly qualified perspective, I'm always keen to make sure they don't try and specialise too early. I think, they might have something they're predisposed to or they think they're going to enjoy. But I think at the junior end of your career, you want to be getting a really broad spectrum of experience. So again, we try and do that. But I say we group generally according to specialism is what we're doing most of the time.
Yeah. And I think the environment is really good. I mean, I'm speaking mainly of extras where I predominantly spend my time, but I think the same as in all our offices, is it's a very relaxed environment. It's not stuffy. You don't need to watch your P's and Q's. Topics of conversation range dramatically, and I think everyone just feels, when they're coming to work, that it's we've got a job to do. Obviously, we take the job very seriously, but at the same time we have a bit of a laugh. And I think what clients like to see as well is we work together and we sit very much together as well. So generally speaking, I work with obviously people in the London office and the Bristol office as well, but the clients like to see you all in a room. So when they've got a team of people that say they're dealing with 3 or 4 lawyers, I think it's so frequent these days. You just see 4 screens and everyone's clearly in a different house or office, and that's fine. But I think we often try and we want people together. We want people collaborating. We want people exchanging ideas, feeling supported, feeling properly supervised. And clients like that. Clients like to see you've clearly got a relationship with your team, and hopefully that's a positive one. And so, so I think that helps the environment, and I think that's obviously reflected in the turnover of staff, which at the moment is very, very low.
Yeah.
So long may it continue.
that's the second time you've touched on the kind of work from home, being in the office balance, which I think is really interesting because it's obviously a topic that's coming up more and more, or has been, around for a while now. What would you say is kind of, for people who don't already know, Ashford's sort of view on that being in the office, that kind of balance between the two as a trainee?
There is definitely we don't have a policy. The firm doesn't have a policy of working, you must be in the office X number of days or anything like that. And it does differ from team to team. But from partner to partner as well. But I think what we would always say to trainees and junior lawyers is the default is we want you in the office. The default is not you're at home and you occasionally come to the office. It's the other way around. But at the same time, we are flexible. No one's ever going to say you can't work from home if you need to work from home on a certain day or certain days of the week. It is a hybrid. But what is really refreshing to see is, I would say almost all junior lawyers and trainees at the moment that are coming in want to be in the office.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good thing. There are massive positives of working from home, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm biased because I live close to the office. So I am very supportive of people that want to work some of the time at home. But for junior lawyers, there is no substitute for being in the office and learning from those around you. And that is incumbent on the more senior fee earners as well. There's no point a trainee being in the office out on their own. It requires people to be in the office, and I've made a commitment to be in the office most days. And the same with the more senior people in my team. And I just think it just accelerates the development of junior lawyers because they always feel supported. They can always ask a question. They can always exchange ideas, bounce things off each other. What about this? Whereas the alternative is probably they're sat at home panicking, stewing, stressing. Of course they can ring me on Teams whenever they want, but it's just naturally harder, right? If I'm away from my desk or I'm in a meeting, they can't get hold of me. Whereas when I'm in the office, they'll just grab me when they see me. And I think that's important. I think maybe certain firms, certain parts of the industry have forgotten that. They've forgotten that working from home is great. And a lot of people is like, well, it's great for me. It's great because it's really convenient for me. It's like, yeah, but what about the development of your junior staff? It's not great for them, in my view. So I think we've made a bit of a commitment in our team, at least, to have that collaboration. And as I say, I think clients like it. And I think clients like to see that you've got that team in the office. And again, we're not saying every day, we're not saying 5 days a week. We are flexible. But I think it's just, that default of being together and having that team spirit, as you want, it's a bit corny to say team spirit, isn't it? But having that atmosphere of support and collaboration is really important, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think you'll know you'll know better than I will, but Bella, I believe the feedback is that the trainees actually quite like being in the office as well. But and there is, I endorse what Simon says in terms of, learning indirectly just from being around and overhearing phone conversations, and that's harder to do on Teams. If you're in the office and you go into a meeting room and you just sort of sweep them up on your way, do you want to come and sit in on this? That's easier. Whereas team, I've done it before where I've had a trainee involved and I just forgot to loop them into a Teams call because they weren't there, or I was at home and they were in the office. So it does present its challenges, but we are, as Simon said, we are flexible. There's not a sort of total rigid line on it. But I agree. I think for trainees and juniors, for their own development and for their own future prospects, they do learn better by being in and around the environment. Yeah.
And I think at Ashfords as well, there's such a big kind of emphasis on that trainee cohort and the kind of social life that they create with each other as well. And, you're always seeing them off doing things on lunch breaks and things like that, which they're not able to build those kind of connections between each other if they're always at home as well. So
and it's a support mechanism as well.
Yeah.
I mean, my intake, I had a fantastic intake and we're still friends and we still keep in touch. But it was very much a support network as well as a social network. There would be tears. There would be, if not from me, maybe there would, but there were tears. There were stressful moments, and the go-to was going to the intake and sharing the stories and sharing the burden and saying, "Oh yeah, that happened to me. Don't worry about it." And I've been there. It's really helpful as a support network, and you should use it. And hopefully you make some good relationships from it and you make friends from it because you're all in the same boat and you're all trying to do the same thing and achieve the same thing. So, and it's definitely not a competition. it's you're not competing with each other.
Mm.
You're all there to do the same thing and achieve the same thing. So,
Yeah. I hear that quite a lot at different firms, of how all the trainees, they're not able to build those kind of connections because they do view each other as just that kind of competition in the end.
Yeah, I
which
don't get that.
I don't get it either.
No, it's not. You know, you're just there to be as good as you can at your job and making an impact. And
I don't think you're getting the most out of it if you've constantly got one eye, looking over your shoulder as to what your competition's doing. That feels a odd culture to me, and not one I'd encourage. I think you just, as Simon says, you've got to trust. You do your best, you'll do all right, haven't you? Really?
And I think it's probably come from the fact that it's competitive to get there, right? You're going through the VAT schemes, you're going through the applications, you're competing with other people.
Competitive.
And maybe there's a tendency to take that into your training contract. But that, I think there should be a line drawn there. It's like, it's not a competition anymore. You're here to do your best, and you're here as an employee of the firm to develop as much as you can, to contribute as much as you can, to take out of it as much as you can, and ultimately to try and get to qualify as a solicitor in the firm. And that's not a competition. That's just making sure you're doing the best you can do and learn as quickly and develop as quickly as you can, and learn from your other and adapt with your other fellow trainees in your intake.
Great. I want to speak a bit about your sort of individual routes into law and sort of how you found yourself as partners at Ashfords. So Robin, do you want to go first? And head of department, sorry.
My route was depressingly traditional, really. I trained in Cardiff with a firm what's called Edwards Geldard, now called Geldards, and I did the very boring vanilla. I got a vacation scheme. I got offered a training contract. Did the training contract, qualified into the firm. So that in
university that you got offered the training contract?
Yeah, so my summer of my second year, I think it would have been. I can't offer any kind of illuminating stories as to kind of particularly innovative, but I was very, very fortunate, and I thought it was competitive then, which was 22 years ago, and it's got worse. So I have a lot of sympathy for trainees and people kind of embarking on it now. And I qualified into that firm, worked there, did have a little career break when I got married and we went on an excessive honeymoon, but kind of been doing it ever since. So I moved around to a few firms, but I've been a partner for probably getting on for 10 years now, I would think. And joined Ashfords 5 years ago. So I can't give you any sort of dramatic stories, but I was very, very lucky, and I consider myself very lucky to have joined Ashfords when I did, because it's been a great move for me personally and professionally.
And what about finding your way into real estate?
That's more of a surprise, and it's probably the thing I'd probably say to nearly all trainee cohorts and VAC scheme students is property law in practice is nothing like property law at university. If you told me my much younger self I'd be a property lawyer, I'd have laughed you out the room, I think. I was very firmly, I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. I was going to be some sort of Wall Street genius. And then within about a month of my first corporate seat, I was like, I don't want to be a corporate lawyer. What am I going to do? So I real estate, or commercial property as it was then, was my second seat, and did that, really enjoyed it. And they sort of said, well, you're coming back for your final seat and then you're going to qualify with us. And I know, right. So I didn't really have a lot to say in it. But no, it's so different to property at law school. It's really hard to express how different it is.
Yeah. What was your third seat? Sorry? What was your third seat?
Oh, my third seat was employment, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that.
No, I mean, HR will vouch for the fact I'm a complete nightmare. So, it was a sort of bit of a surprise, really. But day to day, it's you do need an element of that black letter law that you learn in university on your property seat, and that's why it's a core requirement. I assume it still is. But day to day, it's so much more about negotiating deals, representing your clients. A lot of it is kind of commercial negotiation, and underpinned by that kind of black letter stuff. Yeah. But you're doing your best for your clients in a kind of commercial situation. So it's really, really very different to property and at law school. And I would encourage trainees not to be closed off to it, because I think the perception is I don't want to do property law. It's really
Yeah.
boring. And it isn't. Day to
No, I
day.
agree. Yeah, I was the same. I hated property at
Yeah.
university. It was awful, and it was incredibly hard. I really didn't like it, but it's so different in practice. Yeah, I agree.
And what about your route, Simon?
So my route was quite traditional as well. Yeah, I didn't have that kind of eureka moment of when I wanted to be a lawyer. I was just at school in Cornwall, and I knew a couple of lawyers, and I thought that sounds quite a good job. And so, I was like, well, to be a lawyer, you have to do a law degree. So I went off to do a law degree at X University. Got various vacation schemes while I was at university at various law firms, and so I trained for 2 years at Norton Rose Fulbright in the city, and absolutely loved it. Loved every minute of it. And I was there for I can't remember my seats. I did 6 seats, but I did a seat abroad in Singapore, and I spent some time in Abu Dhabi, and then I qualified into real estate. So my real estate was my 3rd seat, and was again very grateful for them to take me on. And I was at Norton Rose for another 6 years, I think. And we were living in London. We were renting with friends. I loved every minute of living in London. But we just decided, actually, let's head back to the southwest, where we got family, and just to change with my wife. And Ashfords was, I interviewed with various different firms, but Ashfords was always kind of firmly on my radar. And I joined Ashfords in 2016. Spent some time in the London office at Ashfords first, and then moved down to Exeter, and was made up in 2021 as a team. So I've been a partner for 4 years. So it's been, but like Robin, it's been a really good move, professionally and personally as well. It's been great. So
You said you did real estate as your 3rd seat.
30, yeah.
Was that something that did you want? Was it your top choice to do real estate?
So we did 6 seats. We did a 6-seat training contract.
Okay.
So it was 4 months, 6 seats.
Right.
And
gosh, that's a big turnaround.
Yeah,
quite
so I
often,
think that's the
isn't
downside.
it?
The great thing is you get more
Yeah.
experience, and you get with Norton Rose, and you got more opportunity to go abroad, which is great. I did kind of a seat and a half abroad, but there's a lot of upheaval. So it was halfway through my training contract, and people always say this is not what you do as a trainee. This is absolutely not what you do. You don't do a seat because you like the people there, because obviously people change. You have to do the seat because you like the work. I loved real estate because I loved the team. So shout out to the team, the real estate team at Norton Rose Fulbright. They were just brilliant.
But don't do that.
Yeah, they were such a lovely group of people, and still are. And I loved it, and I also love the work. But I think you love the work because you love the people as well. So it's kind of it is a bit of a mesh. And so I was really, really grateful when I got the job there.
And now you found this team, and we're so much better.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Same thing. And again, hopefully it's the same thing. If you feel comfortable in an environment, you feel supported, you feel like you're not in there worried about what you can say, what you can't say, and what you can ask, what you can't ask. I think you're just going to naturally enjoy the work more and be able to develop more and get your teeth into the work more. So, it's don't do it for the people. But obviously you can't ignore the people. Don't do it solely for the people, I suppose. Because, I've seen it so many times in my career where, one partner leaves and takes 4 or 5 fee earners with them. And therefore your whole reason for joining that team has gone. Yeah. And that's no one's fault for that. It's just life. It happens. So that's, and I've seen it happen where people have gone for the people, and the people have gone. And then they're left doing work they didn't actually enjoy. It was just the people they enjoyed. So you can't ignore it, but don't do it solely for the people.
Great advice. So sort of looking back at your careers, really interested to hear a bit about your sort of most memorable story, a horror story, if you will, is what we've said previously.
So many. There are
so many horror stories with real estate.
And I genuinely think being a trainee today is different.
Yeah.
I mean, I was telling Simon about this the other day of doing something wrong and getting hit with a copy of the rolled up copy of the Gazette every word. Don't do that.
We
again.
won't be doing that at Ashfords.
We don't. Yeah. And that was fine. Different times. And I sound old for saying it, but no. I mean, it's we used to spend a lot of time proofreading, sat next to a trainee with one copy of a document, going, "What does it say on line 4?" Yeah. And some of that stuff is just, I guess it's training. Yeah. Doesn't feel like training. Late nights, long meetings. I mean, cancel your dinner plans. You're not going anywhere. Sort of 5 minutes before you're due to leave. Yeah. It does happen. At the time, I was seething. probably as a trainee. Now I might be the person giving them that news. So I don't know. I think the world's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I think the world's changed a lot. I think the way we approach people and looking after people has changed a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it used to be pretty unforgiving. I can imagine in Norton Rose it was.
Yeah, I mean,
there
was it was a great environment in Norton Rose, and it was so much fun. But it was very much work hard, play hard. You did some really long hours, but everyone did long hours, and there was that kind of team spirit again you got from it. Everyone was in the trenches.
Yeah,
especially if you were in the corporate team or the banker team, and it was a deadlines. You would be there long into the night, early hours. But yeah, and that doesn't happen at Ashfords, well, very rarely. Court deadlines and cases and things like that. I'm sure there are times, but it doesn't happen regularly. But it did happen regularly in the and I'm sure it still does in the big city firms. But I suppose horror stories. I mean, again, I wasn't physically assaulted.
I was just
That's
lucky.
a start.
I was just lucky. Yeah.
So sort of the late nights I was emotionally assaulted. But the horror stories, I suppose, in my first seat, I was parachuted into an enormous corporate deal, and there were literally hundreds of people working on it, and I probably shouldn't name the deal, but it was in the press, and it was a really, really big deal. And as a first seat trainee, you don't know what the hell's going on, and I barely went home, or didn't go home much for about a week, 10 days. I was sleeping in the pod. We had sleeping pods in the office, and I remember waking up and not having my phone with me, so I didn't know what the time was. And and I was kind of like, so I went upstairs and I was like, I don't know if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the evening, and I was very so.
What do you do in those? Just out of curiosity, do you shower at the office?
Yeah, so they had
it's expected that you will just basically be living there for periods of time.
And it's not something I don't know what it's like now, but it wasn't something that was expected, but it was something they were used regularly.
Yeah,
there were like windowless rooms in the basement. Yeah. But yeah, so I didn't go home for well, I did go home, but not for very long at all. And that was brutal. But it was also, this is what I signed up for. I knew I was signing up for this. I when you get a job as a trainee in a firm like that, that's going to happen. So you can't complain. That's what you sign up for, and you just have to muck in. And as I say, everyone was in the trenches. Everyone was there. It was quite supportive. Everyone understood it was horrible, but there was a deadline to work to, and it was quite exciting. Yeah, you were exhausted, but it was quite exciting.
I think there's an element of camaraderie. My experience was always once you'd got over that initial, this is going to be tough or hard or long, you kind of get stuck into it, and then there's a bit of camaraderie because everyone's in it together. But they are the ones. But I mean, there's no sugarcoating, is it? Law is a service industry, and if you've got a client who's paying your firm a lot of money for a service, and they say you're working till late to finish this, it's what you sign up for. And I don't think there's any sense in hiding away from that. There are times when your personal life gets put to one side for the job. Just
Comes
might
with
as
the
well
career.
accept it's going to happen. Sometimes it happens less now than I get used to. But it still happens from time to time.
It's not. There is a different and I think it's partly people realise you can't flog your employees like maybe you used to be able to, because they just leave. And as I say, we've got very low turnover at the moment. And I think hopefully that's because we don't do that. Everyone works hard. They know they've got to work hard. They know they're going into a job that is not easy. But then you walk into the office at 8 o'clock or something. Very few people are going to be there. Some people might take their work home, fine. But it's not. We don't do that kind of. You need to be seen. Your jacket needs to be on the chair. Kind of thing. If you're done, you're done. Everyone knows the expectations. Everyone knows they've got to. There's high expectations, high levels of service that we offer, but there isn't an expectation on a regular basis to work ridiculously long hours.
What would you say the standard is?
Most people end up, it's between 6 and 7, isn't it? People generally head off, and sometimes people are there a bit later. I'm normally there a bit later, but I often come in a little bit later. So yeah, between 6 and 7, I'd say. But regularly, my team will be there between 7, 8 o'clock if there's something that needs doing. But that's because they know they've got to get it done. It's not because I'm making them stay and I'm tutting as they walk out the door. No one's doing that. It's just they just know I've got to get this done, and I know, you know, this is what we told the client we're going to get done. We need to get done, or I've got quite a few things on at the moment to get all this done. I've got to just stay a bit later, and I think often it's better sometimes to just stay, get it done, than go home, do what you're going to do, log back on. You know, sometimes it's just better
worry about it the whole time.
Exactly. Just get it. You know, sometimes it's just, I'll just bite the bullet, get it done. And I think it's appreciated as well. It's not because it's not an expectation. People's hard work is appreciated at Ashfords, and it is acknowledged. It's not a default. It's, you know, well, you're not here at 8 o'clock, therefore I don't think you're working very hard. It's not that.
Yeah. What about in terms of like maybe it's not a horror story, but in terms of like an interesting specific project or case or something that you've worked on?
In my training contract, I was part of the team, quite a big team, that worked on an acquisition by a state-owned infrastructure logistics company, and they bought London Gateway, which was a huge port and adjacent logistics park in Essex on the bank of the Thames, and it was a huge nationally important infrastructure project, and it was just massive. You know, the land was massive. It was you know, probably half the size of Exeter, the land take of the whole thing. It was next Shell oil refinery, and it required huge amount of work to get the deal done, as you'd imagine, from all kinds of teams at Norman Rose, from the real estate team to the corporate team, the banker team, the environmental team, the planning team, construction team. And it was working with the client all the way up to acquiring the land. And then obviously when I qualified in the team, I was acting for the client, doing all the, you know, developing out the project, developing out the port, developing out the logistics park. And it is now one of the biggest logistics parks in Europe and the second busiest port in the UK. So yeah, I think those are my highlights. And obviously, like personally, probably my highlight of my career was obviously being made up to partner here at Ashfords, which was a personal highlight. So because it's ultimately what you work so hard for. So yeah.
Highlight was going to be my next question, so you beat me to
it.
Sorry. But that's fine. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. We have a horrible habit, and I know this from sort of trying to collate chambers and case studies from the department. We have a nasty habit. The moment you've done something, it's kind of gone and in your rearview mirror, and you almost forget you've done it. So it's nice to sometimes look back, because you do. Yeah, one of the beauties of property is it's real and physical, and you know, I think you've said before, you know, I did a lease of that building, or you know, in the West End and stuff, and you can actually, you know, often, depending on where you live and where the deal is, but you'll drive past something and be like, I was involved in that, you know, either before it was built or after. You know, now it's a subway or a port. You know, you can actually, it's tangible. It's not always the most interesting dinner party conversation, but it is. You know, it's real and physical, and it's something that you've contributed to, or you know, or been involved in. And I think that's an appealing point of real estate for me, is that it's real. Me, I mean, I do all sorts of things. I'm lucky because I do a lot of public sector work. They can, not always, but often deal with interesting things, you know. So I did get involved in London Olympics in 2012, and the Royal Parks are always very interesting because their stuff is front page news. So I do all sorts for them, and I was involved in the funeral of Her Majesty a few years back, and that obviously is, you know, national, international news. So that is more interesting at dinner parties than I just
Robin
did a
got
lease
to
of a
know
warehouse.
before anyone else that when the Queen died.
Or some
Really?
Yeah, but Robin knew before.
I did get
did
get a tip of the wink that this was imminent. So you know, had you told me again, you know, 15 years ago I'd have been doing something like that, you just thought it'd be ludicrous. So you know, the benefits of having done something for a long time, you just never know where it's going to lead. You know, and it's if you're open to things and you work hard, and opportunities come along and you get a chance to do some really interesting stuff.
And would you say that was your highlight as well?
Probably. I mean, it's pretty.
It's a bit
kind of hard to.
It's not a small one.
It's not. And I think the thing is, it's not sort of something that a lot of people will get an opportunity for obvious reasons. So it probably is. Yeah, it probably is in terms of sort of to say you were involved in something like that was pretty pretty much up there.
Yeah.
So we get this straight. Your highlight was the death of our mom.
Well, you make hay where you can, don't you? It was very interesting. I mean, obviously, it was tragic.
Yeah, tragic. Yeah. And I still miss it.
Yeah. It's just lawyers for you, isn't it? You know, we take pleasure out of other people's misfortune, don't we? But No, it's you know, I think you just get, you know, if you do it and you do it for a long period of time, you'll do stuff that you'll look back and think, how did that happen? It just by its nature, really.
So sort of looking back and reflecting on your careers, any advice that you would have for sort of either people who are looking to apply for a training contract or maybe even if there's current trainees watching?
I mean, I think the point I've made earlier on about, you know, this is as much an interview, you know, you're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing you, if you like. You know, it's a long, you know, when you know your colours to the mast, you know, okay, you can switch if you're newly qualified in, say, real estate, there might be scope to switch, but that isn't a window that's open forever. So you've got to be confident. It's a long career to be doing something you don't like. So I think, you know, be open. Don't make up your mind too early, as I did. You know, I thought it was going to be corporate. I didn't want to do corporate, did property. You know, don't be closed off to things. Do your 2 years, do your training contract, get as much out of it as you can. Say yes to things, stick your hand up for things, because all of that is useful for you, because you are going to have to make a decision in the not too distant future where you're like, that's what I want to do for the next however many years. So I think there's that. And then I think the other one is, just get stuck in. You know, most, we get asked all the time, what makes a good trainee? And it's hard to say, you know, in too much detail, but the good trainees are the ones who throw themselves into it. Yeah, by and large, I would say. Yeah,
no, definitely. The advice I give to the trainees is attitude. That's the first thing. You have to have a can-do attitude. A yes, I will get stuck in with this. That's the key thing. It is, if you have a good attitude, if you have a positive attitude, if you have a can-do attitude, normally most other things fall into place. Not always, but mostly it does tend to fall into place, because attitude is the key thing. And so you should have a good attitude. You've got an incredible opportunity that a lot of people would, you know, be so grateful for, and you've got it. You've earned it. So make the most of it. You know, it's not. Don't just sit there and wait for tasks to land on your lap. Like, make the most of it. You're in an environment where there's lots of opportunities, so take them. And the key thing that the best trainees get involved in the extracurricular stuff, and they get involved in the sports teams. They get involved in the clubs or the groups that they set up. They set up their own group, and then they sometimes even take that into the local market. Like the trainee recently, I said to him, he's a really keen footballer, and I still am, but a bit old now. But you know, the football team at my previous firm was a really big thing. It was a big social draw, and I was like, do that here. You know, we don't have a football team at the moment, or the football team's just because of COVID and everything, it's fallen by the wayside. Refresh it again, and he did, and it's still going great guns. And he's not only did he refresh the football team, and they play every week in a league. He set up the league. He set up a local corporate league, which is now, there's 10, 12 teams playing in the league. You know, that's fantastic. And are you going to increase your chances of getting the job you want at Ashfords if you do that? 100%, because you will be known as someone who's proactive. You'll be known as somebody who gets involved, who's good with people, who takes opportunities, has the right attitude. You know, so just, you know, get involved in as much as you can, and take the opportunities, and that's what sets a good trainee apart from a not so good trainee, I think.
That's one thing that I'd say people tend to be quite surprised with, is how much there actually is going on socially. There's so much that goes on, but in terms of how much we kind of speak about it, I mean, there's so much, and I feel like we don't kind of speak about it as enough as we should, really. But yeah, everything from football to, like, there's some mad social things going on as well. Like, we've got colouring sometimes, colouring sometimes in the afternoon. It's great. I think
there's netball, and there's kind of walking groups, running groups. So there's lots of things, and obviously everyone's open to, like, setting up new stuff as well. So, and
organising the summer party as well. Can't go without mentioning that.
That's a really good thing as well. Like, we get the real estate trainees are involved in organising our away days and things, which is, again, take the opportunity, get involved. Where it shows you can work as a team, you can work to a budget, you organise the social events, you get the kudos for organising a really good event.
Simon might buy him a drink.
Maybe. I'm normally last stood at the bar. It's just get involved in as much as you can, and don't just wait for the opportunity to come, and wait for stuff to land in your lap. I mean, you're probably not that kind of person anyway, because
Yeah.
if you got this far, you're probably not that sort of person that waits for opportunities. But you do see it. You do see trainees that just sit there and they're clearly very bright, they're very intelligent, they're very driven, but they're not showing it. So I think that's the thing, like show it. Show your, you want to be here and you want to get as much out of it as you can.
I think, we're not frightening. That's the other thing. You know,
well, we like to think we're not.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not. Yeah. Other than that. And certainly in real estate, there are no frightening partners, genuinely. And I again sound like an old so-and-so, but there were frightening partners in my training class, ones who you're like, I'm not going to go and task here. You didn't go and approach him or her. Well, it was him. But we're not. So, speak up, come and talk to us, ask questions. If you can't ask questions of partners for whatever reason, ask it of someone else, because it's a pretty open place. And I think, I would far rather have an environment where people aren't afraid to ask than
definitely.
they are, and for fear of being stupid or for being shouted at or whatever else it is. We are pretty open and pretty friendly and pretty approachable. I think that goes for the firm, actually. There's not too many I can think of, even other departments who I think you just would be terrified to approach.
No.
For you.
Which is rare for a law firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you said, there's no one I can think of that I wouldn't pick up the phone to, or grab them in the corridor and say, and everyone's pulling in the same direction. There's very few, if any, outliers of people just not wanting to help, because a lot of it is cross referring, and you've got a client, you pass them on to the construction team or the planning team, and you need absolute faith that other person's going to look after that relationship, and 9 times out of 10 they do, and that's great. That's how you grow the business, and again that's testament to the culture and the openness and the kind of all pulling in the same direction and wanting the same thing.
I have a feeling that culture is going to come up quite a lot in these departmental chats. So no, it's really great to get your sort of take on the team and the firm as a whole. That being said, training contract applications are open. So if you would like to apply and come in and get a taste of the culture for yourself, please do visit our website. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.